Hi, I'm Holly, and this is Happily Ever After. I'm passionate about helping you to create a happy, healthy, and sustainable long term relationship. And I know this doesn't just happen by chance, which is why I'm here to show you how you can make this happen in your own life. Today, we look at faith, beliefs, and the unexplained. Since I was a little girl, I have been obsessed with the unexplained. I remember looking at the age of about 10 or 11 at two books in particular in our small school library. One was about ghosts and another was about aliens. I remember the cover of the alien one distinctly. It had a classic Roswell type image of a tall, skinny being clad in something shiny. It had extra long fingers and huge dark eyes above a very, very pointy chin. I stared at the cover alone for what seemed like hours on end, and I was entirely captivated. As I got older, I was always drawn to those things that are not based in fact or science. Herbal remedies, mediums, feng shui, tarot, Wicca, crystals, incense, meditation, and tales about dragons, vampires, and the occult. Even nowadays, my desk is always covered in crystals and tarot cards. More often than not, I have some healing solfeggio frequency playing in the background during the day to help dispel negative energy and clear my chakras. And the truth of it is, as Julie Andrews would sing, these are a few of my favourite things. Now, many people consider a lot of the things I have listed as myths, nonsense, or even evil. And of course, everyone is entitled to their views or beliefs. So, for many years, I myself was strongly against religion. To me, it was the cause of so much pain, hatred, and often war in the world. As I studied history in school, I saw so many slaughters had happened at the hands of someone who hid behind their god as justification for their actions. The mounting evidence for me said religion promoted evil. Equally, and rather ironically now I look back at my own beliefs and fascinations, I thought faith in something that could not be empirically proven was a sign of stupidity. After all, we are an enlightened people with so much science at our disposal to prove or disprove pretty much everything in our world. Was blind faith not just an indication that you were unable to question the statistical probability of there being a god or gods? In my childish arrogance, I felt justified and right in this assertion. Intelligence was where it was at. We needed science, not religion, in my view. Embarrassingly, though, my own intelligence was failing me. I was unshakable in my belief about ghosts, the afterlife, reincarnation, and the unexplained. What made me so different from someone who believed in God? And yet, I never joined those dots. Or at least not until many years later, that is. Now, about 5 years ago, my husband almost called time on our relationship. And to be honest, it's a story I've recounted so often now that I prefer to avoid retelling it. So if you want to know all the gory details, please just read the My Story page on our website. The moral of the story is, though, that I have come to believe that this event was, for me, perhaps the most important one in my life. Even more so than the death of my mum. So you can see that I'm extremely serious when I say that. And the reason it was so important is that it's taken me down some brand new and unexpected paths in my life, ultimately culminating in giving up my day job, which I'd hated for over 20 years but never had the courage to leave, to start up Happily Ever After. Because I'm so passionate about spreading the message to people that relationships can be truly great, but you can't just leave them to chance, which in the main, unfortunately, we are taught to do. So recently I was listening to an energy healer talking about spirit guides and how they communicate with us. And the idea is, it seems that most of us are not tuned in enough to talk to them or to hear them. So often they have to create situations that will get our attention enough for us to actually get on with living our purpose here on earth, rather than just getting caught up in the day-to-day, as we tend to do. So often situations crop up in our lives, orchestrated by our spirit guides, to give us the short, sharp slap in the face we need to get focused on the task that we should be performing here on earth. And for me, this seemed like a highly viable explanation to why my marriage breakdown happened. Without a shadow of a doubt, so much good has resulted from that incident. Andy and I have taken our relationship absolutely down to ground zero and then rebuilt it brick by brick so it's stronger, better, more beautiful than it was before. And simultaneously, that process has also filtered out to other areas of my life, like ripples in a pond. I have now taken, for me, what was an extremely brave decision: to leave a job I hated and to go out into the uncertain world of running my own business. I'd chosen to do something in my life that means I get to help other people, and that provides me with a strong sense of fulfillment, something that was so desperately absent from my work life for so many years before. I can now do something I love, and the best part of it is that I can make a difference in the world because of it. And I guess I don't suppose you can choose to deeply examine your relationship and not make a big difference in your whole life. And let me explain why. To decide to change your relationship will require some self-reflection. Maybe a lot of self-reflection. And you will need to get clear on what you truly believe about love and relationships, what you want to get in your own relationship, why you want it, and ultimately what you are going to do to get it. And as you sift through this information, you will also need to consider both your past and your future. You'll have to dig through the murkiest parts of your soul and decide to bear them to that one other super special human being that you've chosen to be in a relationship with. And when you do this, you start to reacquaint yourself with who you really are. Now, for any of you who like Marie Kondo, you'll most likely be familiar with her concept of how best to declutter your life. And whilst outwardly she seems like a very structured, task-driven woman who has lists and an order to things, this is also a woman who tells you to hold items you own in your hands and to get really clear on whether they spark joy for you. She asks you to connect with them energetically, and if they don't bring you happiness, she asks you to thank them and then send them on their way to bring joy to someone else. I followed Marie's advice a few years back and went through this process in my home, becoming crystal clear on what made me happy and what did not. And those things that did not, of course, went. Now, whilst this might seem like a strange thing to relate to relationships, in many ways, this is the process we go through emotionally when we come to build our relationships to be the way we want them to be. We have to sift through the old cupboards of our mind and work out what we love, what really serves us, and what has to go. And it's fair to say that this process has meant that Andy and I have learnt an incredible amount about ourselves and each other. We are now completely different beings to who we were when we met or even when we got married. We've had to sift through our own belief system and decide what stays and what goes, what serves us and what does not. And one thing has become abundantly clear to me over the past few years, and that's that one of the most important things you can learn in life is to have faith. And I don't mean by that religion, I mean faith or belief. To literally be able to walk by faith and not by sight. To have absolute trust and confidence in yourself, your partner, and the universe, or whichever higher power it is you subscribe to. Even if you're not familiar with the concept of manifestation or the law of attraction, you may well have heard of the book The Secret, which clues us in on one of the longest held beliefs in the world. That our beliefs create our reality, that thoughts become things. It's this idea of a self-fulfilling prophecy, essentially. But while that phrase is usually applied in negative terms, The Secret shows that we can use the same process for positive benefits. And it's not enough to just tell yourself something over and over. You have to believe it deep down in your bones. And this is maybe why you see so many people talking about mindset these days. We hear, if you can control your mind, you can control your life. You must think a certain way to get certain results. But essentially, it's not enough to just tell yourself something. You have to believe it in your very core. You have to have faith. And this is why most of us don't win the lottery. Even as I tell myself that my numbers will come up in the Euro Millions, I hear that little voice in the back of my head telling me, don't be stupid. Fundamentally, what it comes down to is having faith. Absolute, unshakable, unwavering faith. Because if you expect something will happen without doubt, question or comment, then generally that is exactly what shows up in your reality, good or bad. It became clear to me that those with faith are not, in fact, the stupid ones, as my arrogant teenage self had branded them. They are, in fact, the blessed. They have the ability to 100% totally, truly believe in something that cannot be proven. And they don't even need proof because they have faith. So we all have that nagging voice in the back of our minds. You know the one. It's the one that tells us that we're ugly or stupid or wrong. The one that talks us out of doing the things we'd really love to do or following our soul's calling. We all have that voice that loves to point out the bad stuff. Faith allows us to ignore that mean voice and perhaps even to silence it. Faith allows us to believe in the good stuff always, despite any evidence to the contrary. To look to the future with a heart full of hope and a belief that the best is indeed yet to come. And this may be the attraction for me of things like tarot and Wicca and crystals and energy healing. I don't know how these things work, and yet I know they work for me. I have faith in them. And it might be that they just provide me with comfort and reassurance in a world which does the absolute opposite of that most of the time. These are the things for me that provide a sense that there is something more than the absolute chaos that we seem to inhabit. These are the things that provide me with a sense of a link to the past and to the future. That they will spiritually hold my hand through the bad times and provide me with guidance and direction when it's missing. These are the things I put my faith in, even if my faith in myself is faltering. Now, unless you're living in the Middle Ages, I doubt many people would believe that tarot is witchcraft nowadays. It's more likely, though, that people would consider it to be a scam where people make money out of exploiting people's weaknesses. But is there any truth in that? Whilst, of course, there are some unscrupulous people in the world, I have come to believe that tarot and mediumship, like many of the skills we don't understand, is a wonderful tool when used correctly. Full disclosure, though, I was not always a believer. The first time I saw a reader was out of sheer curiosity. After hearing a quite amazing account from a workmate of mine who'd visited him, my interest was piqued enough to go out and try it for myself. Now, the reader was not a young man, and he was holding a mobile phone that might have looked at home a decade or maybe even 2 ago. His house was devoid of computers, and I'd only actually managed to make an appointment with him as I'd got his landline number from my friend at work. And I explain this because most people think that there is some Matrix-esque reason behind the information that mediums come out with, and that the person you're seeing will have done extensive internet research on you. For good measure, I had called from a withheld number and given a false name. So as you can see, I was just as speculative as the next person. When I arrived, I found a gentle man, full of humour and stories. He suggested that I could record the session, which was such a help, as there's a lot of information and it really goes by in a flash. So I duly set my voice recorder on my phone and just followed the pattern of the visit with an open heart. During my time there, he clearly described things that were going on in my work life, what my husband was like as a person, and even very personal situations that I had been going through. And I was utterly taken aback. My husband, who was extremely cynical, listened to the recording afterwards and had to agree that these were not the generic generalisations he'd expected. He also agreed that had the reading been given to another human being, it would not have made sense. Duly converted, I have been to see him quite a few times since then, sometimes in times of trouble and sometimes in times of hope. In fact, when my marriage broke down, his number was one of the first that I called, and he told me clearly in that reading, this relationship will not break. And in my darkest moments, I listened to the recording of that over and over and over again, as it honestly provided me with the strength that I needed to carry on. When I happily mention to people that I'm going to go and see my psychic, they often give me strange looks, and I always counter that by telling them that whilst I don't really understand it, what I do know is that it gives me great comfort. It gives me comfort because he speaks about guardian angels and those dearly departed who are watching over me, helping me and guiding me, even when I am doing my very best to thwart their efforts. He speaks in positives and he says the worst is past. He gives me friendly reminders to keep an eye out for signs from the universe. And he tells me that I will be absolutely fine. Does he tell me the future? Not as such. Does he identify the current issue I'm facing and provide an answer to it? Every time. Does he make me feel like I can overcome whatever issue I have? Absolutely. And sometimes there is nothing more powerful than a perfect stranger telling you that you can do whatever it is you want to do in your life. Chasing your wishes and your dreams can often require a huge leap of faith. And for me, tarot feels like maybe just a little safety net. Now, every skeptic usually wants proof, and of course, the nature of faith is believing even despite any supporting evidence being available. For those of you who might feel sceptical about the concept of energy healing, there is, as I've learnt, a huge amount in science and in quantum physics in particular that backs up the notions behind the more intangible theories of energy and energy healing. So, like electricity, we can't see energy. However, it's accepted that we are all made from it. And everything in the universe is made from the same atoms. And I mean literally everything. You, your phone, an asteroid, the food you eat, even the most insignificant pebbles on the ground. Now, quantum physicists discovered that the atoms which create everything, in what we see as our physical world, are made up of vortices of energy that are constantly spinning and vibrating, each one radiating its own unique energy signature. And perhaps more puzzling for us, and perhaps more puzzling for those of us not versed in quantum physics, it's been shown that the atoms are made out of invisible energy, not tangible matter. Quantum physics has shown us that we are, in fact, beings of energy and vibration, radiating out our own unique energy signature into the cosmos. As the astrophysicist Carl Sagan said, the cosmos is within us. We are made of star stuff. And he means this in the most literal way. You and I are, at the most basic, fundamental level, made from exactly the same building blocks as the stars are. We are made of energy. And when faced with this fact, it seems clear why so many of us feel connected to something bigger than we are. It's because we are. Now, not knowing any of this, and given my love of things that cannot be totally explained, it was no surprise really that I would be attracted to energy healing as a concept. I can't remember what drew me to it, but I do know that somehow I came across some videos on YouTube one day which were all about energy healing and how we can change our reality through energy work. So, as a natural introvert, I found myself to be in the wrong profession entirely. I used to be in sales, and this felt to me rather like the Einstein quote that goes, "Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid." I really was a fish out of water, and I felt like it. Meeting new clients was really hard for me, and something that, if I'm honest, caused me rather a lot of anxiety. I also used to have to take regular trips to London and found that the amount of people in the underground system used to make me feel massively overwhelmed. So I was watching one of Jeffrey Allen's videos about energy, and it touched on the idea of helping with sales. Now, I was never going to be a typical salesperson, and to be honest, I had no idea where to start, so this seemed like more of a natural solution to me. So as you do on YouTube, I ended up watching pretty much everything of his that I thought might be helpful. He described the idea of bringing your energy back around you, and he showed a cute little cartoon with a little stick man in a yellow bubble to illustrate his point. And this got me to thinking whether this would work for me to not feel so drained when I was going around London on the tube. For a long time, I'd considered myself to be an empath, which, if you're not familiar with that word, means you're more sensitive to other people's energy, and crowded places in particular make you feel very out of sorts. So I figured, if I can keep myself in this bubble, then I won't feel so drained at the end of the day. So I tried it out next time I was dashing around on the tube. Every time I found myself feeling out of kilter, I simply imagined bringing all my energy back to me and surrounding myself with it in this lovely little yellow bubble, and it felt so much better. For the first time, I was able to handle a situation that under normal circumstances really had me off balance. The other thing I did that day was to follow some advice about my conversations with clients. When normally I'd be looking for opportunities that I could help with to close a sale, the advice was to enter into a discussion where you would be successful only if it was best for both people involved. As I walked to my next meeting, I kept this in mind, telling myself that it must be best for all concerned, and in this way, detaching myself from the outcome of the meeting. In fact, I was so focused on this during the meeting that I only realised once I had left that this client, who I'd been visiting for several years now, and who traditionally only gave me very small orders of maybe just £1,000 or £2,000, had out of nowhere agreed to placing an order of nearly £30,000. This was more than enough to convince me that energy work was something I needed to take seriously. Since then, I've spent a lot more time focusing on energy work, specifically to help physical and emotional healing. And whilst even I was sceptical about how much energy work could help to do with relationships, what I discovered was quite surprising. The principles and the actions that the energy healers tell you to take in your relationship are in essence the same as the things that psychology explains in more of an in-depth way. The only difference being that the energy healing doesn't really explain how things will work. They merely trust that you simply have faith that they will work. And of course, this brings us back again to the concept of faith. If you believe 100% that your God or your religion will help you through your relationship difficulties, they will. If you believe that energy healing and crystals and tarot will help you, they will. If you believe psychology and therapists will help you, they will. If you believe a combination of all these things will help you, they will. It's actually a matter of what we put our faith in that ultimately gives us the strength, the confidence, and the ability to find a way. And I've realised that our beliefs are the deciding factor in what happens in our lives, and believing something is very different from wishing or hoping. I'd love to win the lottery, but do I believe 1,000% in my bones that that will happen? Do I have faith in that outcome? Honestly, probably not. But when my relationship went tits up, it was never a question for me that it could end. It was simply a question of, how do I get this back on track? I believed we were meant to be together, and although I didn't know how I was going to make things right, I knew that I would. And yes, sure, there were days that my faith was tested, and I was lucky enough to be able to turn to all the things in my life that, while science can't prove them, they gave me enough strength to carry on fighting for what I believed in. So whilst most of what I teach you will be deeply grounded in science, statistics, facts and research, I also respect that there is a very healthy amount of the intangible involved in your success too. And that could be belief in yourself, belief in your God, belief in your partner, belief in love itself, belief in psychology, or belief in me and my ability to help you. But it doesn't really matter what the belief is or where it comes from. Like the late, great George Michael said, you gotta have faith, the faith, the faith. You gotta have faith, the faith, the faith. If you enjoyed this, then please subscribe to my channel where I enjoy mixing storytelling and random anecdotes with advice and teaching. You can follow me on Facebook or Instagram by clicking the links below. And you can find out more about the products and services we offer, and even download a few freebies too on our website at hea-rt.com. If you have any comments, opinions, or personal anecdotes to share, please feel free to drop them in the comments below. Thank you so much for listening.